Good afternoon, everybody. We want to move into a time of sharing, and Todd is going to be hosting that time. We have the sound of grandkids having a good time, and that's a good sound, right? I mean, what a way to celebrate Ora's life than his grandkids running around screaming and carrying on. I would like to just pause briefly before we have a time of sharing for a prayer, if we might. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for Ora's life. We thank you for this beautiful weather and that Ora would appreciate its beauty. We thank you for this food that we share, and we ask your blessing upon us around these tables in our fellowship, and we ask that this meal might be a foretaste of our reunion with Ora and you on that day. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Well, we're very grateful today for the church and for the way that they've hosted us and accommodated us, and for the volunteers. We're thankful and grateful. So my name's Todd. Now, Brian thinks he's married to the prettier sister, and I think I'm married to the prettier sister, and I think it's appropriate that we can just think that. Can we agree on that? Can we just agree on that? That's the way it should be. Okay. So I'm just here to facilitate walking around and handing you the microphone if you have a story or a memory that you would like to share. If you have something that comes to you or will come to you in a few minutes, I'll just share really briefly that when I started dating Cindy, the benefit for me, other than her friendship, was to get to know her family. And that was a benefit for me, for I came from a difficult situation. My parents never had a kind word for one another, and they had a very difficult relationship. And so when I was involved with Ora and Mary, that was a very positive impact for me and a beautiful environment to be a part of. So that's the one thing that I wanted to share today. So who would be first? Right here.
The rabbit story. Okay, they tell me to tell you the rabbit story. This is when we were kids, and of course, I was 4 years younger than Ora, but he was always good to me and was a good brother. Anyway, he raised rabbits, and he had the ledger, and he wrote down every penny he spent and every penny he got for his rabbits. And when he couldn't be there in time to feed him or something, he would hire me to feed him, and he'd give me a nickel. And of course, a nickel was a lot more then than it is now. But we had a lot of good experiences growing up, and I always appreciated him. So he was a good brother.
You want to give us your name?
My name is Edith.
Aunt Edith, she's the last remaining Troyer sibling. So when I give you the microphone, if you'd be so kind to just offer us your name, that'd be great. So do I have a hand that I can walk to?
My wife sitting behind me just said, "Oh my." My memories of growing up are with this extended family are similar to Todd's. One of the grandchildren, Cindy, Renee, Rick, some of the rest of you will remember is the best way I can illustrate this. The whole family would get together, and I was a young boy. The whole family would get together Sunday afternoon meal or something, and the men, after the meal, would immediately go out in the living room and start sleeping, including Ora and my father and uncle, the rest of the uncles. They were sleeping, and us children were disappointed because they were great storytellers. So we'd go off and play, and every now and then, one of the grandchildren, remember this, Shelley, would announce, "Hey, the uncles are talking," and we'd come back into the house and listen to them swap the biggest swap of lies I have ever heard in my life. But it was it was really funny stuff. And us children would gather around to listen to them tell stories that were mostly fabricated, but they were hilarious. And the ants just rolling their eyes in the background. But a more recent story, about 10 years ago, I was traveling on US 33 between Goshen and Elkhart. I was traveling south on towards Goshen. It's 4-lane out there, and you've all seen this before. There's a car ahead of me switching lanes, trying to get ahead, trying to go as fast as they can to whatever their destination was. They were in a big hurry, and they're switching lanes. You know how you get kind of irritated like that, of a driver like that, and you pull up behind him because you get stopped at a stoplight, and you pull up behind him, you finally caught up at him. You kind of look over at him like, which is what I did, and it was Uncle Ora. It was the biggest shock of my life. I never told him about it. I didn't honk my horn. I didn't wave at him. I just, it was the last person I thought I was going to meet there.
Well, there is a lot of merit and value into that story, because I just shared with the Sibs this past week that I think he was the worst driver I've ever seen. So that is true. Who would be next?
Okay, I'm Margaret. I'm Mary's sister. And going along with this thing of driving, this story came to mind. They would come out every winter to visit us for a couple weeks, and I always appreciated that. And they would show me things in Phoenix that I didn't even know were there to see. So that's how I learned to know Phoenix. But we had an uncle that lived out of town, about 40 miles. And we were going out there to visit them one day. And Ora was driving, and we're heading down there, and these cars are going slow. And again, Ora's passing everybody. Well, we get out to my uncle's, and we had a conversation, and he's talking about, yeah, they're trying to widen this road, and these people already go too fast on this road. Now, mind you, my uncle was only a few years older than what Mary and Ora were. But we had a chuckle on that on the way home, that Ora thought nobody was driving fast enough, and my uncle thought they were already going too fast.
But he was the master of talking his way out of a speeding ticket. Who's next?
This is Edith again. Her saying about his driving made me remember we took a trip to Kansas, Ora and I and a couple other of my brothers. And we came into a rainstorm, and Ora happened to be driving. And we were all scared to death. He just zoomed around everybody, and we thought we'd never make it home alive, but we did.
I'm Brian, married to the best-looking daughter. Cole, you would have been high school, early 2000s, maybe. He treated us all to a cruise from Seattle up to Alaska and back, so the inner passageway. And it was trying to get the family together before people started going off to college and all of that. But as part of that, we had to get ready very early the morning we left. Is another driving story. So he's like, well, I think we can all get in, our car and all the luggage. And this is just like a four-door Buick, And I'm thinking, no, this is a bad idea. You're driving. So lo and behold, at 4 a.m. in the morning, we got all the luggage, and 5 or 6 of us in the car, and it was just barely off the frame, but pretty close. And the trunk closed maybe 3/4 of the way or halfway. So there's like luggage hanging out the back, and we're off. And there's no traffic on the road. So except for one police car, which he passed on the right-hand side, going 10 or 15 mile an hour over the speed limit by Concord Mall. And so by the time the policeman then caught up with us, we were just getting ready to get on US 20, and the lights go on, and I'm like, yep. I just want to see how this plays out. And I mean, he stopped, he put the car in park, and he jumped out of the car, which is not the thing to do. And I thought, oh, he's going to get shot. But nope, he thought, he went back to look at the luggage, thinking something had fallen out, and that's why he was pulled over. The fact that he had passed this police car like he was standing still on the right side didn't faze him. So you hear a little bit of this conversation, and I have visions of this officer just kind of shaking his head, thinking, what? And he could not bring himself to give him a ticket, but did mention that you just passed me on the right-hand side going well over the speed limit. Really? So, we made it to the airport like 15 minutes earlier anyway, because he was driving 70 on US 20. But that was our north to Alaska, how the whole thing began, and it just typifies, I think, his stewardship of time. I only have so much of this, so let's get there quick. And we only want to take one vehicle, and yes, we can get all that luggage in there. So that's my story.
My name's Joel. I'm behind Cole in the lineup of grandkids here, but I just had a quick driving story, but in defense of Grandpa here for a second. He did like to go fast until he got old. I had got a new Corvette and was proud and wanted to take Grandpa on a ride. So one memory I have is his big 6'5" frame falling into my car. But then as we took off, hammered it, and we were going 80 down the country road, and he said, he's grabbing onto the doors, "Whoa, Joel, you have a family." So I think he seemed to forget all those times where he was causing us to be scared. But for whatever reason, he was concerned for our safety. And actually, I remember I was in Arizona, and our cousin Anthony, told me that he had, after I bought the car, called or talked to him and was all concerned. I think Anthony was in risk management at the time, and so he had some questions for him. But anyways, one more little story too. Back to biking. 7-8 years ago, I thought I was going to get into biking like Grandpa and Uncle Rick. And Grandpa was very concerned for me to be on the road, so he bought me a little mirror for my handlebar, which I was not about to put on my new bike. And so he found that out, and he then bought me a mirror for my helmet, which I also didn't install. So, a couple good memories here in recent years of Gramps.
I am Brooke, and I would be, I should highlight, the youngest grandchild on Mary's side of the family. So Ora was my uncle. But I thought about it during the service when you were talking about how he gave so much in every way that he could think of. And the morning of our wedding, it was 2000, so 24 years ago, 24 and a half years ago. And we happened to get married on June 3rd, which was Uncle Ora's birthday. And I don't know if it was planned or if just out of the goodness of their hearts, they showed up to see if there was anything they could do the morning of the wedding. And we got married in Mom and Dad's backyard and had where the reception was going to be. There was a tent out there set up, and that was all prepped and ready to go the night before. And I guess it was dew, moisture, something. We had the napkins were folded and in a way that was, 24 years ago, I thought was beautiful. I don't think I helped fold any of the napkins, but they were folded in a pleated manner to be tucked inside the forks so that they had a fan, at each place setting. And I don't know, was there 500 people maybe that the place was set for? And wouldn't you know, when we got up in the morning, Saturday morning, all of them had wilted, and they looked like used napkins shoved in a fork. And Ora and Mary showed up in perfect timing and said, "How can we be helpful? What can we do?" Uncle Ora spent his birthday morning that that year driving back to Elkhart, I think, to the party supply store to wipe them out of probably another 500 yellow napkins and rushed them back to the house. And Aunt Mary was ironing clothing, I guess, for the bridal party, or I don't know who. But yeah, that was just something that I will always remember. He spent his birthday getting new napkins for his youngest niece.
Say your names.
So I'm Tenley, one of his great-grandchildren, and this is Reagan. And I remember last summer we were out by the pond by his apartment up in Waterford, and we were outside by the pond playing just with all the great-grandchildren, and he was up on the balcony in his apartment, and I was down there, and I would throw a ball up to him, and he would just pass with me for a while out there. And a couple years ago, he would give all the grandchildren bike rides on his bike.
This winter, my name is Reagan, and this winter we went to Grandpa's room, and some of the cousins sang song from preschool, and he sang a song back to us.
How can you beat that from the children? Oh, my word. I'm Ken Yoder, a biking friend of Aura, so I got to know him biking. We did Mennonite Central Committee bike rides. He was involved with raising money for MCC. He had a heart for humanity and for kindness and for helping others, did he not? On bike rides, on long bike rides, cross-country bike rides, you tend to talk a lot. You tend to have questions. You tend to think about things. You tend to think about faith and spirituality and religion. And Aura could think out of the box. In a way, he reminded me a bit of the philosopher from Ecclesiastes. He knew how to ask questions and how to think and wonder and question. I certainly had a lot of questions. So I would end this by saying, for a Sunday school class, in our Sunday school class here at College Mennonite, he had the floor that particular Sunday morning. And guess what the theme was that we talked about that whole hour? Why did the chicken cross the road? It was wonderful.
I'm Bob Sturry, and Aura's one of those good uncles. We've had a lot of good uncles. Aura's a great uncle. And what you guys shared up front, the three siblings, that was really good. He would be very fitting to hear that. I'm sure he did too. But he was a gracious man, and I served on several committees with him, and he was always a kind of conservative, optimistic guy. Conservative enough to say, well, like I think a lot of people explained it, maybe you shouldn't spend as much as what you're going to spend, but he knew the outcome was going to be good if it happened that way. And Levon and I were just talking a little bit ago. Troyer's had a good thing going because here's Elroy, Levon's dad, who was this entrepreneur, go-getter guy, and then you had Aura that maybe put the brakes on a little bit and said, let's get it back to reality. And the two of them made a great team. And Troyer's was successful very well because of that. And the other guys that came along, I'm sure Levon had something to do with it too, right, Levon? Yeah, right. But anyway, he was just a good man, and he cared for people. And when your legacy's gone, and we're all going to be there someplace, and we can all reminisce funny stories, and they're great to share, but the heart of a man is what you really remember. And Aura had a great heart.
I'm Orville Yoder, Mary's cousin. Our mothers were sisters. Our growing up, when I was probably married already, and my mother had all of her sisters and brothers and their families come over to our house for a family reunion. And Aura, I think, would have been a really good athlete had he had a chance to continue developing, but Dad wouldn't let him play high school, even. But anyhow, get my story going here. We were at this family reunion, and out in the hayfield, we had just cut off the hay, and so we had a place we could have a softball game. And with our mother's large family, we had quite a few people to play in the softball match game. So we get up and we chose up sides, and Ora and my brother-in-law Harold Mast, my sister Edna's husband, they were the two biggest people around playing softball together. Well, the pitcher was having a little extra fun. So Ora was on first base, a runner, and my brother-in-law Harold was the first baseman. And so the pitcher balked, it made it as he was going to throw the ball to the batter and didn't. And Ora took off for second base until he realized the pitcher still had the ball. So he tore back to first base to where he was supposed to be, and he and Harold, these two big guys, tangled, and they just ran into each other and ended up on the ground. And Ora broke his ankle out of that. So I know he was hobbling around for a few years. But anyhow, the stories of Ora and Mary and extended family, we had lots of good times together.
Preston wants to say something. Wait, where's Preston? Preston! My name is Preston, and we like seeing Grandpa Great, and he likes seeing us, and we like to write him lots of cards.
So when we were planning our wedding, we were living in Kansas, and I was a year ahead of Cindy. She was finishing her sophomore year at Heston College. Mark and I were at Heston working, and Cindy came home to prepare for the wedding. I flew home just in time for my wedding, and one of the things that Ora did for us, just to help us in our planning, was he made the arrangements for our first night hotel accommodations. And so, me being 800 miles away, I thought, well, that's great, something I don't have to do. So late at night, after the festivities, we opened the door to the hotel in Elkhart, and what did I see? Twin beds. Thanks, Dad.
I'm Anna Rose, Joel's wife. Just a couple little things that I'll always remember about Grandpa. When we were first married, we lived in a little house on Hackett Road, just north of Goshen. And I worked evening shift at Goshen Hospital, so I was home during the day usually. And every once in a while, just out of the blue, I'd get a knock on the back door, and there was Grandpa in the middle of a bike ride. Can I get a drink of water and use your bathroom? And so we'd have a little chat, and that was just fun for me. And then something that I see in my husband that he got from his grandpa are the abrupt, quick endings to phone calls. If you knew Ora, it was like he would say goodbye, like kind of in the middle of the conversation. All of a sudden he was done and the phone was off, and it was like, oh, okay, all right, bye.
Okay, this is great-grandson Trey. What do you want to say today, Trey? Do you want to stand on a chair? You want to say something? You want to go behind the curtain? Okay, we'll be right back.
Hi. How is everybody? Trey, say what you want to. Okay, go. You got it, Trey. Okay. He's talking to Mike. Can I try? Bing bong bodian.
Okay, silliness. Lots of silliness. Anybody else?
I'm John Smith. Ora and I knew each other only fleetingly in college, but I got to know him well in the last 5 years as a pastoral care visitor, a layperson that visited once or twice a month. And I had a great pleasure in getting to know Ora. But I must say that this morning, the sharing from Renee and Rick and Cindy was a very nice overview And I only heard little glimpses of that in my visits with them, but I thought it was such a nice sharing, and I appreciate that very much.
Okay, we don't have to prolong this. I know there's other things to do today. We're so grateful for your presence and for your support and friendship and your love and care. So thanks for gathering with us today to celebrate. And unless someone else has a hand in the air, we'll conclude this time of sharing.